Hello, well-educated Heart Academy families. My name's Trent Merrill. I'm one of the instructors here at the Academy. I just wanted to provide an introductory video or an overview of the course that I'm offering this next year. It's part two of the World War II Heroes in Literature. This year we'll be focusing on Germany's Eastern Front briefly and mostly about the Pacific. And we'll also continue to talk about and discuss and learn about the helpers, the resistance, the just all of the things that were going on at the time of World War II. So today I want to give a quick overview of the class. I'll introduce myself. I'll provide the tentative book list. So the first semester of books, so the first 16 weeks of books are set in stone. The second semester, the spring semester, I'm still working on a few of those books, and so I'll provide that tentative book list here. And then I'll also discuss briefly the optional trip to Berlin and Prague that the class can take after the course is over, so in the summer of 2026. As I mentioned, my name is Trent Merrill. I have a educational background in science, engineering, and law. I'm a patent attorney by day, and in my spare time, I enjoy teaching history here at the Well-Educated Heart Academy. I teach World War II history courses. I'm teaching a Age of Discovery course that focuses on Portuguese and Spanish explorers and the brave and historical explorations and things that they discovered. I also teach a class about innovation and the art of inventing, which really is my true technical and educational background as a patent attorney. I've taught at Well-Educated Heart Academy now for 2 years. I really enjoy it. Before that, I taught in when we lived in Northern Virginia, I taught at our local co-op, George X. Lemmy class, and I really enjoy doing that. I've been a homeschool dad for, I think, 15 years now. My family and I moved to Portugal about a year and a half ago, maybe a year and a third or a year and a quarter ago. We're really enjoying the experience so far. It's not always been easy, but it's definitely been one of the most rewarding things that we've done as a family together. I really enjoy learning. I really enjoy sharing what I've learned, and I enjoy trying to help inspire others to develop the love of learning that I have found through my educational and, I guess, after educational pursuits also. By way of homework, each week I offer or I assign 4 hours of homework each week, which includes a mixture of reading several chapters in a book or occasionally 2 books. If there's some overlap or if we finish one and we still have time, we might start another book the same week, but generally just several chapters from one book. And I also assign supplemental content to fill in the gaps of the book. For example, a podcast or a YouTube video or additional text, things like that, to provide more color or more of an in-depth look at some of the topics and themes that we're talking about or that we're reading about in the book. For example, in part 1, we read the book The Longest Day about the D-Day invasion. And one of the supplemental contents that we focused on, as part of the invasion, there was an invention of an inflatable sort of mechanism that allowed tanks to float. And so some of our supplemental content that week was learning how that happened, how this inflatable mechanism made the tank float, how it was inflated, how it was deflated. When we read the book Band of Brothers, we had a lot of supplemental content about the actual training videos that the paratroopers were watching as they arrived at their basic training and at their jump training. And so we try and find information, try and have supplemental content that helps us learn a little bit more about the topics that are in the book. I also assign different interactive modules. And I say interactive because I encourage the students to interact with each other on the Well-Educated Heart platform. And in these modules, I have one that is called A Few of My Favorite Things, where I encourage students to share their favorite quotes, share emotions that they felt as they read, connections they made as they read, if they took notes, or if they engaged with the literature in other creative ways. Students have created art, they've written music, they've written poems, they've prepared letters to some of the characters in the book that we've read, like Helmut Hubner writing him, thanking him for his example and for being so courageous and saving his friends. So a few of my favorite things is something that we try to focus on the heart, try and focus on how we can connect in different ways with the books that we're reading, how we can connect with the characters and the heroes that we're learning about. Another module that we often will use is called thoughtful discussion questions, where I ask the students to craft, and I provide some training on how to do this and how to come up with good, thoughtful questions. But students are encouraged to craft thoughtful discussion questions to help us think a little bit deeper about the text. How does this relate to us? How can we start a discussion on this topic in such a way that it can relate to us, or that it can really speak to us? And I think that's something that I'd like to focus a little bit more on in this coming year, how we can dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics, how we can find a deeper meaning and a deeper connection with the stories that we're reading and learning about. I also have another module called According to My Research, taken from the Magic School Bus, where I encourage students to put down the book and to research a topic or a theme or something that they encountered in the book. Put the book down and go find out a little bit more about it. Perhaps a student is reading about a plane, for example, or a bomber, a B-26 bomber. And the book just talks about it briefly, but maybe that captures their imagination, or they're wondering, what does a B-26 look like? How does it operate? Where is the tail gunner sit? Where is this? Where is that? And so I encourage the students to feed their intellectual curiosities as they're reading the book. Put the book down, go look up the information that you're curious about, and then come back and tell us. Let us know what you were curious about, what you looked deeper into, and tell us what you found. And I found that is some of the most rewarding discussions that we've had in class, are the extra things that caught our attention, grabbed our interest, and it also helps me sort of tailor the course to provide supplemental content that is more interesting. And so it's a nice little cheat code, I guess, as a teacher, to find out what students are really engaging with, so that I can help them go a little bit further down that path and find a little bit more information and talk about it and have discussions about it. And so our homeworks generally, I stick to 4 hours a week. If I have a writing assignment, often I'll give more time for the writing assignment and less reading. Sometimes we'll have map making exercises where the books that we're talking about have a lot of different names of cities, a lot of different geographical locations. And so I provide a blank map for the students that they can fill it in. And I see that happening this year as the battles in the Pacific take place. There's island after island. Where is Midway? Where is this? Where is Wake? Where is, all of these different islands that we're learning about? What is the geographical relationship between them? And so we'll have a map making exercise for 1 or 2, maybe 3 weeks, where students will receive sort of an award for doing that portion, making a map. We'll have writing assignments where students can talk about what their connections they're making, what heroes are sort of connecting with them, and what they're learning, the different principles that we're learning from different phases and aspects of World War II. It's been really rewarding in the class that we've had. The students that put a lot of effort into the class, I think, are pulling and receiving a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of love for this topic. So it really is as much as these students will put into the class, they're going to get a lot back. If they're putting a little in, they'll get a little back. Maybe, hopefully, our discussions in class will provide them a little bit more than just a little bit. We've really had some great discussions in part one. I'm really excited for part two. But that's the homeworks for this week. Or, sorry, not for this week, for this coming year. Okay, so for our book list for this class, as I was mentioning, the books are set in stone for the first semester. The second semester, I have a few that I am heavily considering, but I'm looking into a couple more to see if they would be better for our class. So the book list, there's only one book that will overlap from part one. And students that took part one, I'll encourage you to read this book again. But the first book will be Hitler Youth by Susan Campbell Bartoletti. It provides a really good overview of how the Germans got from point A to point Z in following wicked and crazy man in his ideals and his sort of twisted thoughts. I think it's easy for us to wonder, how did this happen? How did they follow him? How could they be brought along to be so loyal to this person? And this book really provides a good and an understanding overview of the different steps that the propagandists took to bring them along. And so we'll focus on that in 1 week. It'll be the first week of class. Then we'll move on to a book called The Light in Hidden Places by Sharon Cameron. So for those who love the Hiding Place, Corrie ten Boom's story, I think you'll also love this. It's very similar, but it has a little bit more of a love story to it. It's about a teenager that does some of the some Polish resistance work. She hides a dear friend and family of hers. And so there's a lot of different moral choices, courage, sacrifices that she takes in order to help her loved ones who are Jewish. She is not. And how she can help them hide and help them have food. It's really a touching story, and I think that students will really love it. The next book is called The Boy on the Wooden Box by Leon Layson. This is a boy who was on Schindler's List. So if you know the book Schindler's List, Schindler was kind of a party guy. He was a carouser, and he owned a manufacturing plant that produced a lot of different things for the Germans. And as Germans started taking Jews away, Schindler started creating this list of people who were necessary for his operations and therefore necessary for Germany. And so he had these expert technicians, expert manufacturers that he absolutely needed. And this boy, who was a small teenager at the time, was on the list and was considered to be an expert for operating his machine. But in order to operate his machine, he had to stand on a wooden box. And so it's a story written about a Holocaust survivor who was able to make it through the Holocaust and make it through this whole experience, being helped and being on Schindler's List. It's a really fascinating story. I think it gives a different optic or different view of some of the things that children were going through at that time. Another book that we'll be reading is called Beyond Courage by Doreen Rappaport. These are some of the lesser known acts of rebellion and sabotage and rescue that the Jewish resistance had set up. Some of these stories are fascinating. They're told in sort of feels like more of a short story format where we get to know a number of different heroes and characters, and some of the incredible things that they did. It's a fascinating book, really compelling stories also. The next book is called Code Girls, and we'll be reading the Young Readers edition. And this is a book about the female contribution to intelligence and cryptography and the way that we were trying to break the code of the German armies and the Japanese armies and the Japanese government, so that we could understand and know the messages and know the positions of their submarines or U-boats, or to know what was happening with different troop movements. And these were women that were brought in who had special skills in mathematics and physics and all of these different things so that they could break the code, break the cipher, and understand the messages that were being sent. It's really a cool book. It's fascinating. And it is a young reader's edition. They cut quite a bit of the technical aspects out. And so it's a little, it flows a little bit easier. But really a wonderful book. The next one is The Code Talker. And this is a memoir that was written by one of the Navajo code talkers. And it goes into great detail about the role of Native Americans in World War II. Navajo is one language that the Germans or the Japanese could never understand. And so they were even speaking in code in Navajo. It's pretty fascinating how that all worked and how they were able to talk. These code talkers were able to talk to each other with their broadcasts being in the open, but no one who was not a trained Navajo code talker would understand what was being said. Really awesome, fascinating book. And I think that, I mean, I'm saying this about every single book. I love all of these books. That's why I'm presenting them. It's been really fun for me to go through all of these books that I love, hearing them again, hearing new books, and sort of trying to pick out the best ones for this class. It's been fantastic. The other books that I'm going to have for sure, one is called Unbroken. I think many of you are aware of the story of Louis Zamperini. We're going to read the Young Readers edition. It's a book by Laura Hillenbrand. Louis Zamperini is a man that was a fascinating story. He had a fascinating life, and that's it. I think that you probably already know the story, but it is an incredible book. We're going to read a book called Target Tokyo. This is one that I really enjoy. I'm trying to see if there might be a better book, and it's about the Doolittle raid, Jimmy Doolittle and the 16 bombers that he led in the first attack on Tokyo, trying to strike back a few weeks after Pearl Harbor. And just the fascinating courage that it took for these guys to take off in these big bombers from an aircraft carrier, where physics and science sort of said that they shouldn't be able to take off on an aircraft carrier with these big bombers. And they certainly wouldn't be able to land. And so they took off knowing that they were going to either land in enemy territory, they were going to make it to China, where there's a good chance that there would be Japanese soldiers waiting for them. It really was just sort of a mission that there's a good chance they weren't coming home, and they knew it, and they volunteered for it. And they were the best of the best at that time. Really awesome book. Anyway, that's it. So we'll have probably a book about the Battle of Midway. I'm currently considering two different ones. We're going to have a book also about Stalingrad. I try to include at least one battle in each part of this course that is not really covered in American history. During part one, we talked about Dunkirk and the importance of everything that was happening at Dunkirk. And in part two, we'll talk about Stalingrad, which really was the turning point of World War II. As the Nazis expanded, or Germany expanded. Stalingrad was the first battle where Hitler's people started to lose ground and they started to contract. And so we'll read a book about Germany's Eastern Front and the battles that were going on there in Stalingrad. It's going to be a fascinating year. There's going to be a lot of reading, a lot of awesome supplemental content to help us understand these things. And the supplemental content this year will be, again, just focusing on diving a little bit deeper, understanding more information about the topics that are covered in the books that we're reading as we read them. just to gain a deeper understanding of those things. I just want to interrupt the video for just a moment. For the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about an optional trip that's tied to this course, and it's available for students and parents of students who have taken the course. If you're unable to attend the trip for whatever reason, if it just doesn't work out for you for any reason, please don't let that dissuade you from taking the class. We don't talk about the trip during the class. It's really something that's extra, and I'm aware that not everyone can make it on the trip that wants to go for a whole host of reasons. And so I go out of my way to make sure we don't talk about the class, don't talk about the trip during the class, because I don't want to make anyone feel bad or make them feel left out, or that they're missing out or feeling bad about it. So just know, don't let that dissuade you from taking the class. If the trip is not an option for you, still take the class. It will be the same for everyone, whether you're going to be on the trip or not. We don't talk about it in class, so the class will be fantastic. Whether you're going on the trip or not, the class will be great. All right, back to the video. I also want to provide a brief overview of the trip that I have planned for students, an optional trip for students who take this class. The trip will be in the summer of 2026, probably the second week of August. When I have those dates, I'll post it for sure. But I just got home from a trip from France with 9 students from my Part 1 class and 7 of the parents. And it was phenomenal. It was really incredible to have spent so much time learning about the airborne 101st, learning about the D-Day invasion, learning about Dunkirk, and then going and seeing those locations, learning about how the liberation of Pegasus Bridge, and then going to Pegasus Bridge and seeing the memorial there, seeing Omaha Beach, seeing Utah Beach, seeing the bunkers at Pointe du Hoc, seeing the craters that were made by the US bombs that were dropped from planes in preparation for the D-Day. Left such a huge impression on me. I think the most powerful experience that I had, though, as we went through these tours, I mean, I had this feeling of gratitude and appreciation. But when we stood at the monument, or stood at the cemetery for the American soldiers, it just hit me. As we learn in this class, we learn about, this hero and that hero and that hero, but the war was full of thousands and thousands of heroes that gave everything, their lives, so that we could have the freedoms that we have. It was such a powerful trip. I think it really cemented the things that we learned. I'm hoping to recreate that experience in Berlin as we visit different things. I just a quick overview and this is not set in stone, but I've already been in contact with tour guides that give tours of the Third Reich locations in Germany. So we'd visit the Reichstag building. We'd visit Hitler's bunker, where he the last day he spent the last days of the war. We'll visit memorial after memorial after memorial. See the railway bunker. We'll see the Olympia Stadion. We'll see the Tempelhof Airport, and we'll go also to where the blood court was, where Helmut Hubner was executed. And so we'll spend an 8-hour day going from site to site with a licensed and an expert tour guide providing commentary on the different locations. We'll also spend a separate day going to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp memorial, where we'll see and learn more about how the concentration camp operated, what the living conditions were like, and see it in person. I think that it will be a deeper day, kind of a heavy day, but I think it's something that will help us understand, help us better visualize and understand the atrocities and the hardships that people had gone through. We'll also, on a I guess a lighter note, we'll spend a day or two in Prague, going to Prague and just seeing the beautiful sights there, the castles and things along the way. The trip itself, and this is tentative as the dollar has been moving around. My France trip I quoted in dollars, but then the dollar value dropped. I did not change the price, but I'm going to say tentatively, at least until August or September, the cost of the trip will be about $1,700, 1,750. So $1,750 per person. That includes everything from when you land until you're taken to the airport or until you're going back to the airport. So covers food, it covers the tour guides, the transportation, the hotel that we'll be staying at. It covers everything. It does not include the flight to Germany, and that's it. So you'd be flying in and out of Berlin. The dates, as I said, I believe it will be the second week of August. I'll provide those dates as soon as I can. I wanted to talk to Dr. Pablo and find out when the classes will begin in August 2026, the fall, and make sure that we weren't overlapping with those classes. The trip will be offered on a first come, first served basis based on receiving your response to a questionnaire that I'll post at the end of this video, and I'll have a link in the comment, at least a link in the YouTube link, a link in YouTube for the questionnaire. And as long that will hold your place in line as long as you pay a $50 deposit per participant within 10 days of filling out your questionnaire. If you fill out a questionnaire and then it takes a longer time to receive your deposit, other people might be, I guess, in line first. The trip is going to be a maximum of 24 people. If there is an overwhelming amount of people that are interested beyond 24, I may split it up into two separate 16-person weeks. So I guess that would be a maximum of 32 people if I end up splitting it up into 2 weeks. Where I live in Europe, it's not as difficult for me to I guess, add another week. But I don't want to do that unless there is an overwhelming number of people who are interested. So again, cost is $1,750 around there. It may go up 50, may go down 50 or $100 too. And I'll provide a more concrete number maybe in September or August of, after classes are starting, but that it'll be right around there. For the trip rules, you must be at least 15 years old or accompanied by an adult. Make sure you review the airline rules about solo travelers before you're buying your tickets. Some airlines do not let 15-year-olds fly on their own. Some say you have to be 16, I think. But if you're traveling with your parent, no problem. The first trip that we had to France, there were 2 students that traveled without parents, and everything went very, very smooth for them. And in August, when we have another trip, our second trip to France, there will be, I think, 4 students that are traveling solo, and I expect that they will have a smooth travel as well. There will also be parents who are joining the trip. I foresee parents joining the trip from a number of different hubs around the United States, and so it would be possible for a student traveling solo to sort of link up with another student and their parent so that they can travel in a smaller group. Students will be paired with a buddy if they are without a parent, or if there is a student who doesn't have a parent, we'll pair you with a student and their parent. That worked out really well on this last trip that we did. Students will be assigned to a chaperone. There's going to be no alcohol, no drugs, tobacco, no vaping, no anything like that. I don't think that's a problem with well-educated art students, but it is a rule. When we arrive at the hotel, no students are allowed to leave unless we're leaving as a group. And even though we'll be in wonderful places, seeing Berlin at night, and in Prague, which may be a romantic place, there will be no love in the air. No singling off or no pairing off will be allowed. And then breaking these rules will lead to an immediate dismissal from the trip. I'll help you find your way to the airport. You and your parents can work on how to get an earlier flight home from there. Um, and then more details will come as far as, passport requirements, travel health insurance, permission slips, waivers, things like that will be forthcoming as we move on. And so again, I'll have a questionnaire for you to fill out about your student and about their interest in the trip and whether or not a parent will be joining. And I also have a Venmo account that you can send the $50 fully refundable deposit to. My email is hybridschoolers@gmail.com. If you have any questions, or you can find me on the Well Educated Heart platform. I tend to look at that at least once a day, especially even in the summer. I'll look at it about once a day, so that I can answer questions and help with anything that needs to be helped. All right, with that, it's going to be an exciting year. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to, we had such a wonderful time in part one of this course. I think part two is going to be equally as incredible. And I'm really looking forward to the school year. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please write me, reach out to me if you have any questions. If you have, any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to me, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.